the two biggest Nigerian fintechs, PalmPay and OPay, and these companies have done really well in Nigeria, and they happen to be IPOing abroad. And that's a huge debate for Nigeria and the Nigerian economy and these companies themselves. So what do you think is the reason behind their decision, and what should Nigerians care about? What should our audience care about with respect to that?
Well, I would say that that conversation is actually a very interesting conversation, especially for the markets. And one of the things that I suspect may have driven that direction is the nature of investors. The average Nigerian investor wants, prices their investments in your company on historical returns, not necessarily future returns. So I'll give you an example. The valuation of PalmPay and OPay, I think, is maybe about 40 billion thereabouts. And so if I have a slice of that company, yeah, it means that the question is, how much will they then sell a stock? How much will I likely earn from that stock in the first 12 months, in the next 24 months thereabout, versus if I'd just bought a GT Bank stock and I knew that there was a guarantee that I'll earn what dividend they paid this year, 12 naira, 17 naira, thereabouts. And I think GT Bank is currently valued at maybe 3 times book versus OPay that wants to be valued at maybe well over 10x book value, because in the real accounting terms, they are not yet a profitable enterprise per se, or maybe I think they just recorded some elements of profit versus other Nigerian entities that have had multiple years of profitability. But when you then take that same business to list on an American stock exchange,
Yeah.
the average American investor is investing based on future value, right? They are a more sophisticated market, and once they understand what the fundamentals of your business is doing, they believe that, okay, I'm going to put my money in here, regardless of whatever the S&P 500 is doing, or regardless of what other existing stocks are doing. I believe that there's some element of, returns that I'll gain. I calculate the NPV. I see that, okay, it's still value for money. So I would say that it's a mix of the nature of the markets. A lot of people that are crying wolf about it, or they're crying out loud about not being able to invest, I don't think that they would really love to invest at the price that they would want to float, those equities.
I I see the validity in your like arguments, right? But I mean, a lot of the discussion in the African VC space, right, is about, or recently has been about these companies or like exits not staying on the continent,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And when we look at fintechs like OPay and PalmPay and the volume of or percentage of their revenue that comes from Nigeria, I mean, it is venture. I can see the cry in a way from the NGX that, we deserve to get off the gains of this, right? Because this is where you reaped a lot of your revenue. I can imagine that if an OPay was listing, maybe not fully listing, but like dual listing on the NGX at the same time as like listing in their home country, or like, I don't know if it is in Hong Kong that they are trying to list.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that a lot of people are going to buy into OPay, right, from Nigeria. Not just the regular retail investors like you and I, but like a lot of institutional investors that missed out on the venture raises that they done before listing would want to like key into that. So I get the cry from the NGX or the Nigerian Stock Exchange. But at the same time, the risk that comes with venture, OPay could have just fallen flat on its face and failed in the Nigerian market. And whoever had put up millions and millions of dollars to fund this venture is left with nothing at the end of the day. So they want protection for their own investment as well.
Exactly.
They want to come to the more established markets. They want to return to where they have more guarantee of their investment. Nigeria still carries with it, or like venture investing in Africa still carries with it the sort of stigma of like the continent. People look at West Africa and see military takeovers in countries that surround Nigeria. They don't have the context of like safety in Nigeria, or like how it is still hard to estimate for them. What I'm just putting my VC or angel investor hat on and I'm thinking, yo, I want to get my money out of here. Maybe sometime in the future when there is growth, maybe we can do some sort of extension of our listing to their own local market as well. But then it will be altruistic coming from the venture side. So that is where it then falls on the regulators to kind of enforce this, which is very tricky because I'm seeing like a double-edged sword where it could also deter future investors into Nigeria. It's like, whoa, if we want to exit from this space, we are then mandated to do it on their own terms and in their own market. So yeah, it is an interesting one to wiggle around.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree. The company, they don't have any, they're not beholden to Nigeria. But they are not patriotic. They have investors to find the best markets and get the best valuation for their investment. And that's what they do. And if Nigeria tries to start, making stringent rules, it will also, be very interested in coming to start in Nigeria to start with. So I think it's a balance of having to make Nigeria an attractive destination for some sort of dual listing, have better disclosure standards, ensure that there's more investor access, currency risk that is associated with Naira, reduce it. Those are the things that Nigerian government has to do so you win them by making the market useful, not by having laws or regulations that will not be helpful for businesses
Yeah,
like
but I think that in fairness to the NGX though, the NGX has seen significant improvements in the last couple of years. And that I assume is why they're also making a major case for an opportunity for Nigeria and Nigerians.
Yeah.
It's still a double-edged sword, largely because in this case, we're talking about a business sourcing for capital, right? So it's not necessarily a charitable activity. It's about the business deciding as to where they would rather source for capital. There's an element of it that says that, oh, because you've made money from me, you should also give me an opportunity to be part of your business. But there's then the question of the existence or non-existence of a moral obligation. So are we looking at it from a moral obligation standpoint, or we're looking at it from a decision that is being made by the current capital providers? And when you look at it, the current capital providers may say that, okay, we want to exit, part of our capital from this business, means that we want some, liquidity, some new liquidity injection, right? Where do we think we can get a better value for money? And, where do we think that the market would also support whatsoever transaction decisions we want to make around this transaction? So I would say that it's a mix of two things eventually. There's that moral, element to it, which is where the case for the NGX comes in, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and also it's not entirely bad. It's not a gloom situation if they list successfully on a foreign stock exchange. It can still be good for Nigeria if that capital funds more hiring, more product.
Exactly.
So expansion from Nigeria being their base will still help the
Exactly.
economy.
And I think it's just interesting